Let me come to healthcare in a second. I want to ask you about taxes, because I figured that we'd have a tax conversation today. Right. I know that you had said the other day that the president's plan was a non-starter. I think that was the word you used.
So the tax increase part.
Because the tax increase part. Within the last couple of days, the Tax Policy Center, which is a project of the Brookings Institution and the Urban Institute, put out a study that said that for the past 2 years, a family of four earning the median income has paid less in federal income taxes than at any time since 1955. All federal, state, and local taxes combined are a lower percentage of per capita income than at any time since the 60s. And the highest income tax bracket today is the lowest it's been in 20 years. Why are we not having a conversation, an honest conversation, up or down, about raising taxes in that environment? Alan Simpson, who co-chaired the president's bipartisan commission that you alluded to, over the last weekend came out and said at a forum in Denver he believes the only way to solve the federal budget problem is to raise taxes. So why are we not having an honest conversation about taxes?
Well, we should, and I don't mean to say we shouldn't have a conversation about it. We ought to talk about why is it that 47% of wage earners in America pay no income tax. And that's the fault of both Republicans and Democrats, I think, by taking people out of, they basically have no interest in tax policy because they are net beneficiaries of federal spending, and we ought to balance that out. And I think the President's Fiscal Commission made some very sound recommendations in terms of our international competitiveness, bringing down the top tax bracket, widening the base. And, but the reason I think why people are paying less taxes is because we've been through a terrible recession. People's incomes have been dramatically reduced. And one of the things we need to do, in addition to stop spending so much, we spent $3.7 trillion last year, and revenue to the federal treasury was $2.2 trillion, and you can see that's where the $1.5 trillion deficit was. Well, we need to bring the top down, and we need to bring the bottom up by growing the economy, which in turn creates jobs and opportunity. But right now, the small businesses, large businesses, entrepreneurs are, I think, in some doubt as to how government policy will impact them. Can you really write a business plan for 5 or 10 years without knowing, will your taxes go up dramatically? Will the EPA dramatically affect your business by regulation, or just exactly what are the terms of the game? So I think we need to have a discussion about all of these things, and I'm happy to have a discussion about tax policy. I'm for tax reform. We need to make it flatter, fairer, and certainly simpler. But the issue is, but you would not cut off a debate. In other words, if at the state level or at the federal level, people wanted to have a conversation out in the open about raising taxes, you'd be willing to participate in that conversation? I would, and I think, but the president shouldn't try to just limit it to raising capital gains and dividends tax or top 2 marginal rates. I mean, that's not a fulsome discussion about a very important issue. We need to put everything on the table and let's talk about it. The concerns you have about what you said, 47% of people pay no taxes. Are you including income tax? Are you including corporations in this? I mean, I know there's a lot of publicity over the last couple of weeks about GE and other corporations that may have actually made an enormous amount of money in the last period of time, but not actually paid a share of taxes that they ought to based on what they made. Are you willing to have that conversation too? Absolutely. It's not illegal to take advantage of what your accountants and lawyers can help you do to defer payment of taxes or not pay taxes. But look, everybody needs to have skin in the game. Everybody needs to be involved. And yes, there's a lot of loopholes in the tax code that need to be closed in order to broaden that base, in order to make our policy more rational and to make us more competitive internationally. There are people who say that closing tax loopholes are basically the same as raising taxes. What do you think about that? Well, it would be unless you brought down the top tax rate. So it would have to be in concert with bringing down the top tax rate. What I'm talking about, making it flatter and bringing down rates, making it revenue neutral by closing some of those loopholes. But then I think what we need to see is how that dynamically interacts with the tax code does with the economy to create more revenue. I mean, we can create more revenue if the economy started taking off because people would start paying taxes that they're not paying now, not because their tax rates are too low, but because they're not making any money. Businesses are not growing.